Hello, friends, and welcome to episode 1 of our podcast.
26 to Life, where after 26 years of friendship, we have spent more than a life sentence together.
So now we're going to do a podcast together. A podcast out of sheer desperation. I can't work and
I'm unemployed.
you are unemployed. So, hi, I'm Catherine.
And I'm Rosie.
And each week we are going to tell each other a true crime story that the other one hopefully has not heard. No secret researching is allowed.
That is against the rules. And we'll probably also have a bit of a giggle along the way because that's just our...
That's what we do.
Warning before we get into it, this podcast does deal with graphic topics: murder, sex, drugs, suicide, children being harmed, and I don't think we're ever going to be able to cover animals being harmed because me and you would not cope. But
I would probably cry the entire time, but I think that's important.
I do too, but so you have been warned. Please don't listen to this with children, and please choose a time that you're not feeling super vulnerable to listen to us jibber jabber in your ears.
So this week I'm going to tell Rosie the White House Farm murder stories. You haven't heard of this one, have you?
No, which is surprising because you said that it's happened like super close to where I used to live.
Yeah, so maybe not super close, but in the same county of Essex.
Yay.
Yay.
Episode 1, and everyone already knows that I lived in Essex for a period of my life.
She's from London, don't worry, guys. So, on the 7th of August, 1985, 5 people are found dead. So, we have a beautiful farmhouse. Tollershant Darcy. Yeah, working backwards. We have a beautiful farmhouse in Tollershant Darcy, Essex. Have you heard of it?
No, I've not actually.
Okay, so it's not like Grays Tilbury area where we know. It's more, you go further northeast towards more like Colchester.
Yes, okay, sure.
Okay, so it is a gorgeous farmhouse. It's called White House Farm. There is actually a photo, which is an aerial view of the farm. And really weirdly, this photo was taken on August the 6th. And when this crime then happened, I'm guessing the detectives or whoever was looking into it reached out to this aerial photographer and asked for a copy of this photo because obviously the crime then went on to happen in the early hours of August the 7th. So the day before, there was this random coincidence, I know, that the photo was taken just before the crime happened.
That's
so
kind of spooky, isn't it?
It is, yeah, it is spooky, but we have an aerial view of the house, which is helpful when you are kind of looking at what happened. The 5 people who they find in the house, we have Neville Bamber. He was born in 1924. He was a fighter pilot in World War II. And he was just said to be an absolute gent of a man. He flew what they call mosquitoes, which is a type of fighter jet pilot in North Africa. Very, very brave. His plane was shot down and he suffered a really severe back injury. He left the war. Not left the war. What is that? After the war was over, he then attended either horticultural or agricultural college, depending on which source you read. I don't know the difference.
I think that's probably where that
Confusion comes in.
Yeah, because not many people probably do know the difference. But agriculture is about farming and horticulture is about plants, I think.
How do you know
Although
that?
now I'm not confident either.
No, you're right. Agriculture is farming. Farming. Horticulture, is that more like botany? You know, in America, they actually study botany at school.
Yeah, botany is plants as well.
How weird is that? Imagine studying botany at school. It's like being in Hogwarts and studying...
Under Professor Sprout.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
So, while he was at horticultural or agricultural college, one of the two, he met a man called Robert Boutsflower. Now, that becomes important later. I've literally written I was trying to be like off the cuff, but in my notes I've written, this becomes important later. He was also...
It's like reading a script and it says, and she said, exit left, laughs nervously.
Neville Bamber was also a justice of the peace. Did not know that still existed. So I have only ever heard of justices of the peace as a history teacher, learning about kind of like Elizabethan England and the changes that were made to the legal system. They still exist.
What is the justice of peace?
So, from what I understand, they are a type of magistrate. They are unpaid. So when you go into court and you are not seen by a judge, you are seen by magistrates. They make a decision instead of a jury.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I've heard that. Yeah.
Often they're a lawyer, and they have to have certain training. But the training only started coming in 1949. that means that JPs had to have training and instruction. Before that, they were just people in the community who made decisions on things like a court of law. So Neville was a good egg. Like, he was a really prominent member in his society, and he was also in the house with his wife, June. They were both 61 at the time. June Bamber, she grew up in a family of farmers. She worked in offices, however, she did work during the war in the Female Army and Navy Yeomanry. Yeomanry, yeah. Do you know that the acronym for that is Fanny?
That's really unfortunate.
Yeah, but I teach it, GCSE history, Fanny.
That's honestly, that it doesn't make sense to me, because it's British, and that is a British word. So why would you choose for that to be?
Don't forget, Fanny used to be a name, though.
Oh yeah, that's true.
It wasn't ever.
Yeah, but do people actually call their kid Fanny, or was it short for something else?
No, I think it was a name.
Wow.
I think it was a name. Yeah. Fun fact about Fanny, the female yeomanry, they were first aid trained and they would help. They were not allowed to serve in Britain because Britain didn't believe that women should be a part of the sort of war effort on the front lines. So they actually were stationed in France.
Oh, so they could still help, but they
were helping. They were helping our side, but they had to be stationed in France to begin with.
That's so ridiculous.
I know.
So ridiculous.
So, Neville and June Bamber actually met because Neville and Robert Boutflower, the two buddies who went to horticultural college together, let's say if he's a farmer. Okay, they went to college together. Those two men then started dating June and her sister, Pamela. So June and Pamela Speakman were sisters, and then June met Neville and Pamela met Robert. September the 3rd, 1949, June and Neville get married. So after the war, they're both living in White House Farm, and this is an active farm. This is their livelihood. This is their job. This is not kind of just a farmhouse.
This is the term is working farm, an active farm.
I'm sorry, imagine you're actually normal people don't know this stuff.
The term is working farm. It's an active farm. Very active.
It's a very active farm. Okay.
Lots going on.
Lots going on. As you will see. Oh, God.
Oh, they like to do Pilates and yoga. Mud run.
Lots of training. Tough mudders over here. Tough mudders. This house actually had a really traumatic history because prior to this family living here and then all being murdered, there had been an occupant who had drowned and his father had killed himself with poison, suicide by poison.
Oh.
So if you believe in this stuff, you could say haunted.
Do you believe in this stuff?
No.
You don't believe in ghosts and
No.
spirits and stuff like that? Wow, interesting. I do.
Do you?
Yeah. Oh,
I think we've had this argument before.
Yeah, probably.
Do you
Now's not
believe
the
in
time.
what's it called? Like going to mediums and stuff?
It's to some extent, although I went to one the other day and you just knew that it was all not. I didn't go to a specific medium. It was like this whole Halloween event, and they read your tea leaves, and then there was also like this medium, and she did like this show almost. So there was lots of us. It's not that it was a con, but you could see through everything that she was doing. Like there was one thing that she said, "I'm going to bring someone to the stage," and she said to her, "Do you have any Russian background?" The woman was like, "No." She said, "Okay, I'm going to connect to the language side of your brain because we all connect at some point in our past back to we have Russian somewhere in our pasts. So I'm going to connect to that part of your brain." And she was like doing all of this in her, and then she gives her a piece of paper and she says, she showed it up to the rest of the crowd, and it just looked like gibberish. It just looked like literally Russian letters. And she showed it to her and she said, what do you see? Can you read this? And the woman reads an English word, and I can't remember what the word was. It was something like, I don't know, something stupid, just like a normal word. And then she did it again, showed us another one, and it was like Russian. And so at the end, she was like, if anyone wants to come up and see any of the things on the table, any of the stuff that I've used today, feel free to come up and look at it. And so me and my friend were like, I'm going to go and look at this. There was a few other things, but I was like, I want to go look at that piece of paper just to see. And we went and looked at the piece of paper, and it was it was, you could see the English word written in it. It was kind of like written in a way so that it was blurred on the inside, but you could still clearly see the English word in amongst the Russian text. And I was like, that's an absolute scam. Let's be honest. That's a scam.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
it was
just
very
think
strange.
that I do think it preys on people who are vulnerable. I'm not saying that everybody does that, but I do think that there is a large percentage of people who prey on people who are, you know, vulnerable and sad and whatever.
Oh yeah, no, I do agree, and but I think that there are some things that can't be explained, but there are a lot of things that can still be explained. But I think that for me, I more believe in like energy and stuff like that, because yeah, I definitely think that there's you have to go somewhere. Like people have souls. I don't know. I don't really know. I've not really gone too much into what it is that I believe in, but I definitely believe in energy and hauntings and stuff like that. Like that there are unexplained things, that not everything can be explained just because
I can
this, that,
see,
the
I
other.
can definitely see that. I just don't think it's in the way that we assume of, like, I don't know. I just don't think it's as clear cut as it's made out.
Oh yeah, no, I completely agree. Carry on.
Anyway, back to our family. Both June and Neville are very religious, and they're very kind of prominent in their community in terms of attending church and stuff. June really struggled with her mental health, and after she got married, she struggled to become pregnant, and she became hospitalized. She had electroshock therapy, which I did not know this still happens.
Yeah, I mean, even today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But there's quite, like, I did a bit of a deep dive into what people think about it, and it's really mixed, and I'm surprised that it's so controversial, but still happening.
So well, I guess because there has to be, in this day and age, there has to be some kind of research proving that it works for it to still be allowed, because it is obviously such a quite invasive, not invasive, what's the word?
It's something to be like...
brutal.
Yeah, it was something like it induces a minor seizure that changes the way that your brain works. Like, I mean, I am by no means a scientist, but it was something like that. And I just think, that sounds dangerous.
But it's not what you see in the movies anymore. You know, when they put the thing in your mouth to stop you from biting your tongue, and like you've got the things and then you're like jolting around.
How do they do it now?
I mean, it's still, it's a similar, the process would be similar, but it's just not as
horrific,
traumatic as as that you'd see in like One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest.
Yeah, okay. But anyway, she had that done. There is really spotty research on it, and they say they use it for people with severe depression or mania, and some research actually says it helps with Parkinson's. But anyway, at the time in 1938, I cannot imagine that there was a huge amount of really good research. All June wanted was to become a mum, and her mental health was taking a massive hit from the fact that she couldn't have babies, because there was definitely that social expectation that you have children, you get married, you have children, you become a homemaker, you become a housewife, and she wasn't able to do that. And her psychiatrist actually later said that June had this belief that everything was good or bad. Everything was, if bad things happened, very black and white. If bad things were happening, it was because you were being punished by God. And so this must mean that she has done something wrong. She's being punished by God, and that's why she couldn't have children.
Yeah.
Neville and June start looking at adoption in 1957, and they adopt a baby girl, and they change her name from Phyllis to Sheila at 3 months old. But only a year later, June is really, really struggling again. And she goes into a private psychological hospital. That's not a word. Psychiatric hospital.
Oh, yes, okay.
Yeah.
Psychological is a word, but just not
It is a word, but it's not that word.
Yeah.
She goes into a private psychiatric hospital, and one of the reasons was that she believed she was going to hurt her daughter. So that's obviously terrifying. And I know that, you know, that can come about with postnatal depression, but I don't know how it works with adoption. Although I think it might tie into all of her kind of religious beliefs of being either good or bad. That might, you know, play a part. Sheila and June had a really difficult relationship. Actually, do you know what? That's a bit unfair to say, because that's putting blame on Sheila, and Sheila was a child.
Yeah.
June referred to Sheila as the devil child a lot. And I think actually one of the big reasons is that Sheila was beautiful, really, really beautiful. She was very, very slim. She had like a heart-shaped face, big blue eyes. She was stunning. And so she got a lot of attention, and June felt that she was promiscuous and whatever. But,
How old was she?
This was through her whole childhood. Her whole childhood, she was being called the devil child and everything. So it must have so much impact on her throughout her life. I mean, children are going to be naughty. Children are going to do things wrong. That is the whole point of being a child and a teenager, is that you mess up, and the idea is your parents teach you. So to be referred to as the devil child is just, not okay. January the 13th, how many days after that is my birthday? No, after my birthday is that. 1961. Juliet Wheeler, don't worry about remembering her name, she was a vicar's daughter, and she became pregnant by Army Sergeant Major Leslie Bryan Marsham. What a freaking name!
Whoa.
But they weren't married. So vicar's daughter, not married, became pregnant. Yeah. So
It was a legitimate relationship. It wasn't like scandal.
It was a scandal because they weren't married when she became pregnant.
Yeah, but they were like together. It wasn't anything.
Yes.
Okay.
It's referred to as an affair by a lot of sources, but I think that was just because they do go on to get married, this couple.
Okay, but it was just an affair because they weren't married. Okay.
I think so, yeah. So they later get married, but they don't want anything to do with this baby. They put the baby up for adoption, and Jeremy Bamber is adopted by the Bamber family at 6 months old. But his biological parents, even though they later marry, they don't want anything to do with him. Very sad. Very, very sad. He was a bit of a pest at school. He would do things like he grew weed behind their houses in the farm. He brewed beer at school, and he would sneak out to go to concerts. So he was a bit of a pest. Bit of a pickle. He wrote in his diary that he was often referred to as a bastard, which is really sad.
I mean, it's the truth though, isn't it? Let's be honest.
It is, but it's also, it's horrible. Do you know where that comes from?
There's
I've
got to
probably
be
told you
something
this
French
before.
like bastard. No?
No. So when you are born, no, this isn't now, but a history teacher moment, it used to be that when you were born, they believed that your stars determined your fate. And so if you were born when your parents were like out of wedlock, then you were barred from your stars, which would make you a bastard.
Bastard.
So you basically couldn't access the future that you would have had because you were barred from them because your parents weren't married. So they put him up for adoption because of that, which I think is wild. But anyway, Jeremy goes on to be at one of the best private schools. He still didn't do well. He had an affair with a woman who was married with 3 children. Now, I take issue with this because I don't know exactly how old he was at the time. It doesn't say. However, I do know that he was at school, and I do know that Sheila was 17, and I know that he was younger than Sheila. So essentially, a teenager...
Yeah.
Having an affair with a woman who's married with 3 kids, it's not an affair. She's having an affair, but she's also a paedophile.
Yeah, he is the victim here.
Yeah. As Jeremy gets older, he travels a lot. He has a great lifestyle, and his parents paid for this. They were very, very wealthy, and I think they thought that he would just kind of run around, sow his wild oats, and then he would come back and settle down and have a nice life. He did have a couple of run-ins with the law while he was abroad, but nothing major, and he had a whale of a time. When he returned, his parents had a house for him that they paid for that was about 3.5 miles away. And it takes about 15 minutes to cycle between White House Farm and the house that Jeremy was living in. And I need you to remember, you're looking at me like, what are you on about? It takes 15 minutes to cycle, and I need you to remember that.
Okay, but how long does it take to walk or drive? Why cycle? Why a very specific cycle? Do they not have a car? Or
No,
is it not walkable?
he has a car, 3.5 miles, cycle in 15 minutes. I just need you to accept that information.
Stop asking questions.
And stop asking questions. 1974, Sheila is in college, and she meets a man called Colin Caffell. He's 21. Sheila is 17. And Colin was at Camberwell Art School. They had a bit of an up and down relationship. Sheila has become a model once they've met. She is absolutely beautiful. She becomes a model. And Colin does describe their relationship as having violence just below the surface, so it doesn't sound like it was great.
So her parents aren't paying for her lifestyle as well, or they are?
No, as far as I can tell, they are. But she's at college. She's now met this man who is 21, and in 1977 they get pregnant. So 3 years after they've met, Sheila is 20, they become pregnant. I'm sure I got that maths right. I'm sure she was 17 when they met. I may be off by a year. Around about that time, she becomes pregnant. And June says that they have to get married. And they do. Now, this gets a bit complicated because some sources say that the baby is stillborn. Others say that the parents forced her to have an abortion. And other sources say that there was a stillborn baby and an abortion at 2 separate occasions. I do believe, actually, though, that the baby was stillborn because they got married in the same year as the pregnancy. So it seemed like a bit of a shotgun wedding, try and do it quickly, in which case, why would they have had an abortion?
Yeah.
So I think that the first pregnancy was a stillborn. They then became pregnant again another time, and she actually miscarried that time. So Sheila is starting to take on these beliefs that her mother held, that all this bad stuff is happening because she's evil. Because that's what her mum has told her. When bad things happen, you are evil. When good things happen, it's because you are good. And so Sheila starts to kind of take that belief on. June 22nd, 1979, Sheila actually gives birth to 2 beautiful baby twins, Nicholas and Daniel Caffell. Having children so young, it takes a strain on, it takes their toll on their relationship. And in 1982, they get divorced. Sheila Caffell is paid for by her parents, and Sheila and Colin, they co-parent really well. They get on really well. I mean, what is that like? Can you imagine? They
Must be nice.
Must be nice. Never seen this before. They co-parent really nicely. They get on really well. But Sheila is really, really struggling. And similarly to her mother, 1983, the 4th of August 1983, so just a year after the divorce, and the babies are about 4 at this point, Sheila goes into a psychiatric hospital, and she thinks she can project evil onto people. That is what is reported.
Oh, wow.
Now there is a big question here of nature versus nurture. Sheila has paranoid schizophrenia, and we do know that the chances of your child having paranoid schizophrenia, there is a slight increase. I think it's of about 10%. But they're not blood related.
Yeah,
so is this a nature nurture thing? Sheila goes into this psychiatric ward, this psychiatric hospital. She thinks that actually her babies are evil and are trying to seduce her. So
at 4 years old.
Yeah, so this is what's later reported by her psychiatrist, that is what she thought was going to happen. And she actually said, similarly to her mother had said previously, she said that she believed that she could do harm to her boys. On the 10th of September, 1983 still, Sheila is discharged. So she's been in there roughly a month and a few days. However, she continues to be seen as an outpatient and is on medication. Now, it was really difficult to find this information, but it turns out that Camberwell Social Services were in fact involved with this family, and they paid for Sheila to have her boys looked after every single day by a foster carer called Judith Jackson. So I think it's the kind of foster care where it's like, what's the word? Respite.
Yes. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So Judith looked after the boys from being a year old, and she said they were lovely boys. She got on really well with Sheila. However, the boys weren't thriving in the way that they should be. And Judith was appointed to kind of ensure their welfare and the welfare of Sheila. When it later comes up in court about Sheila's mental health, this isn't disclosed to the jury, and the defence actually wasn't told until 2002. So the fact that her boys were being looked after by a foster carer was not disclosed.
Wait, so when you say respite and looking after her as a foster carer, they were living in another house with this other lady, or she came to the house?
No,
to look
I've
after
been
her?
unclear. During the day, when they're with Sheila, they go to the foster carer.
Oh, okay.
Now, my question is, why are they going to a foster carer when they have their father?
Yeah.
Seems strange.
Yeah, it does.
Now, her case was moved from Camden to Westminster, and they were concerned that Sheila was unfit because she had failed to seek medical advice in a number of situations, including an ear infection, but also scalds. Like, bad burns, she'd failed to seek medical advice. Now, plural, that's odd. Multiple burns. Now, there's not a huge amount more evidence on that, so I can't really speak on that much more, but I can think of one time Leo has been badly burned, and it was on a glue gun at school, and it traumatized me, and it like peeled off the skin, and it was awful, and had to be wrapped in special stuff. And the school actually then changed from using hot glue guns, and they ordered cold glue guns specifically because of that. A scald is not something that you just kind of, it's not a bump to the head, let's say, you know.
Yeah.
Children bump their heads all the time, playing sports, running around, everything. But anyway, multiple scalds apparently were not seen by doctors. In 1983, social services closed the case on Sheila and her children. So they are no longer under their care, and they are believed to be, you know, safe in her care.
Okay.
I have serious concerns about social services in a number of situations. However, I'm not a social worker, what do I know? Working in education, I've seen a lot of situations where social services do not do what they need to do to safeguard children, but I wasn't there in 1983 in Westminster Social Services, so I can't speak on that. And at this time...
Also, wait, they're just outside Colchester. Why is there a social worker in London? Because that's still quite a journey.
She gave birth to the twins in 1979. They start being with the foster carer after a year. So it's before the divorce. It's before the divorce. I didn't do my year math right. It's before the divorce, which is strange because then why you take, if Colin is there, unless it's just the fact that Sheila looks after them during the day while Colin's at work.
Yeah.
Because they're discharged in 1983 and they got divorced in 1982.
Right.
So maybe it was just up until she moved to White House Farm.
Yeah, okay.
But like I said, the records on this are really spotty. The defence team in this whole case didn't actually get this information till 2002. So it's not like it was widely available in a whole heap of sources. And when I'm researching for this, there are so many sources. This is the one that was like, there was tiny dots of it here and there, but not a huge amount of information on it.
Yeah.
At this time, Jeremy, we're going to go back to Jeremy because we haven't spoken about him for ages. Jeremy Bamber is dating a woman called Julie Mugford.
Okay.
Julie. Not a fan. Not a fan of her. Anyway.
You don't like Julie?
No, not a fan of Julie. March 3rd, 1985, Sheila is readmitted into the psychiatric hospital, and she has a lot of religious ideas that she is being spoken to through the Bible. Now, on March the 29th, they decide to start her on injections. The reason being is that they are slow acting. So often someone with paranoid schizophrenia doesn't want to receive medication because they believe that people are out to hurt them, or, you know, they don't trust the world around them. So to have someone on an injection can actually be really beneficial because it means that over time the medication is released into their system. Nicholas and Daniel, the two little babies, and they move in with their father at this point.
Colin did full-time.
Full-time. They did go to White House Farm. They went back and forth between the two, but they were living with Colin. Now, Colin said that Sheila's mental health actually took a nosedive when she would see her mother. He was worried because the boys actually said that they were scared of their grandma. They said that, you know, she was super religious. She would pray all the time. You know, you imagine being a kid and making a mess and that makes you evil. Like, they were scared of her. They expressed that to their dad.
Okay.
Now, in December of 1984, Julie and Jeremy are now engaged. On August of 1985, Colin drops Sheila and the boys off at White House Farm to stay for a week. Colin was going to pick them up at the end of this week and take them on a holiday to Norway. Do you remember the date that all this goes down?
The 7th?
Yes. So, we know that in the house we have Neville and June Bamber, both 61. We have Sheila Caffell, Nicholas and Daniel Caffell. At the time, Nicholas and Daniel are 6 years old.
Baby boys.
Sweet baby boys. 3:36 a.m. on the 7th, Jeremy calls police and he says, "My dad has called. Sheila has a gun. Both my baby nephews are asleep. Please go round and help." Now, we see the report from this. Father phoned, aged 62. Not sure why the sources differ. "Please come over. Your sister has gone crazy and has the gun." That's the quote. Phone went dead. Father, Mr. Bamber, White House Farm, Tolleshant Darcy. Can't read the rest. Sister Sheila Bamber, aged 27. Then it says action taken, has history of mental health illness, HQIR informed, CW informed, and unit dispatched. The rest doesn't really make sense. Informant is requested to attend the scene. So that is
So Jeremy is requested to go. Okay.
At 4 a.m, the police arrive at the house and Jeremy arrives just behind them. 2 officers and Jeremy go up to the house and they want to arrive slowly around this bend because one of them has said that they can see a shadow in the window. So they duck down because,
The police officer said this.
Yeah, so in their report,
Okay.
they said they see a shadow at the window. And obviously, if they believe that someone is armed inside the house, they have to be very careful when they're approaching. Jeremy says, oh my God, he says this to a police officer. I can't believe it. I took the gun out yesterday to shoot rabbits and I think I left it in the kitchen. Oh my God, I really hope she hasn't done anything. So the phone is off the hook in the house and they are listening, but they can't hear anything. So they don't know.
Literally, they don't ever hear anything at all.
I think they can hear a dog barking.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Jeremy keeps saying to the police, please go in. That's the only family I have. Please go in and help them. Like, just go in, you know. And they won't because they are waiting for armed backup to arrive that doesn't arrive until 5 a.m. But they still don't go in for another 2.5 hours. They are shouting out through a bullhorn and they can only hear
Foghorn?
this dog.
Bullhorn?
Bull.
Is that thing?
Yeah, the foghorn's part of a ship.
Oh, okay, sure. Yeah, no, you're right. Okay. Is bullhorn the right thing, though?
Yeah, I don't know. That's what it is.
Okay, fine.
I don't know. You're just the police on agriculture and horticulture and active farms versus yoga and...
Working farm!
Bullhorn is the one that's like this. And you can go, come out with your hands up. It's what they use in SWAT.
Yeah, I just
Get out of the
never
vehicle with
saw
your
it was
hands up.
called
You're Googling it, aren't you?
Bullhorn. Yeah, sorry. A bullhorn.
I'm right, she's wrong.
It's a megaphone.
Nope. Look up what is a bullhorn.
Oh, okay, yeah, no, I got it. But it is also called a megaphone.
Okay, well, is it also called a bullhorn?
Yeah, but it's also called a megaphone.
Great. So, bullhorn. At 7:30 a.m, the raid team enters. Collins and Delgado are the 2 officers that are first on the scene. And they look through the window and they radio to say we can see 2 bodies in the kitchen, a man and a woman on the kitchen floor. When they get in there, only Neville is on the floor. Now, Neville's body, this is difficult. There's a lot in there. So the chair is sideways and really sadly, Neville is dead. Neville has been shot.
Who said that there were 2?
The police officers said over the radio, I can see 2 bodies in the kitchen. But when they got in there, there's only one body.
One.
And it is the body of Neville Bamber. And he is dead. And this room is a mess. The lampshade is broken. There's blood everywhere. There's bullet shells. There's sugar, which is key. The sugar has been broken and there's sugar all over the floor. The chairs and stools are tipped over. The phone is off the hook and the chair is sideways. And Neville's body is actually slumped over it. Neville has been shot 8 times. He's got 2 wounds to the right side of his head, 2 to the top of his head, his lip is damaged, his jaw is damaged, and the pathologist says that with the injuries to the jaw and the damage to his larynx and soft tissue in his neck, it would have led to blood flow into the mouth and he wouldn't have been able to speak. Now that becomes really important later. The damage to his jaw would have also meant that he was unable to speak. He had black eyes, a broken nose, he had bruising on his cheeks, he had cuts, or was described as lacerations to the head, bruising on his right forearm, which they believe would have been defensive wounds, left wrist, and he also has circular burns on his back. This man is battered. Like, it is horrific. Yeah, it is horrific, the injuries that he has faced. And he is slumped over this chair. If you are listening to this on Spotify and you're not watching this on YouTube and you can't see the pictures, Rosie will upload all of the photos into an Instagram post and that will be linked in our show notes at the bottom of this episode. So don't feel left out. You can see the pictures too.
Oh yeah, there's like quite a struggle going on. And poor Neville. But this doesn't seem as if there's not that much out of place, really. You can see that like the mat has been
is there anywhere in there that you could mistakenly see another person?
No, definitely not. Not from the angle that this photo's been taken, definitely not.
And that is what is confusing because the police said 2 people. The police said very clearly a man and a woman.
Yeah, what the heck? Okay, yeah, definitely not. There's very clearly one person, unless they thought that the other chair was a person, but I can't, maybe in the dark. I mean, I'm not buying that.
So the police go upstairs and they find sweet baby Nicholas and Daniel dead. They're in bed.
That wasn't going to happen.
They're in bed. Hopefully they didn't, I don't know. There's no hopefully in this. There's no kind of way out of it. Daniel has 5 shots to the back of the head. He still has his dummy in. And Nicholas has 3 shots to the face. So these boys were, I hate the word overkill, but it's overkill. These tiny little humans.
That's far too many for such a small person. There's no need, surely. One would have killed them. Why did they have to do 5 into 3? Like, that just seems so much. That's awful.
I'm fascinated by true crime. Anything to do with children and animals, really. I think it's because it's the helplessness and it's the complete reliance on the adults around you to keep you safe. Yeah. So the police go into the master bedroom and June and Sheila are in there. They're both dead. They are in their night dresses. June has been shot 7 times. However, it is indicated by the blood spatter, or like the way that the blood has fallen on her clothes, that she had managed to get up and try and make it to the door. She's absolutely covered in blood. She's been shot in the head, the cheek, the right knee, and she's been shot between the eyes. Yeah, so it seems that she was shot in bed and got up and then walked to the door and then fell. Sheila was shot the least. She was shot twice. She was shot in the neck and she was shot under the chin, and the gun was lying on her chest, pointing to her neck. The Bible is open next to her, and there is a phrase underlined, and that is Psalm 51 to 55, "Save me from blood guiltiness." Now, there is no explanation as to what it's underlined with. It's red underlined. Is this blood? Is it underlined in blood? And I've had a look into this one, and it's from David, and it is said to be him expressing his repentance and plea for God's forgiveness and restoration. David is confessing his sins and is asking God to wash away his sins. So if we take this at face value, Sheila is feeling very guilty about something. Another source also says that a police officer picked up while they were in there, picked up the Bible and then replaced it, but couldn't remember what page it was on, so thumbed through it just fine. Yeah,
that could mean absolutely fuck all.
Yeah, so that could mean absolutely nothing. This police officer has picked it up, changed pages, but again, we'll come to it later, but the police often will contradict what they've said earlier. I'm guessing because there are so many mistakes made when dealing with this case that they don't want to admit to that. Sheila has no other injuries to suggest an altercation, so in comparison to Neville, she's just got these 2 gunshot wounds.
Okay. So are you thinking that she hasn't beat up Neville then?
Right. So this is the thing. It could
or
mean
you think she didn't put up a fight?
It could mean that she didn't put up a fight, but equally it could mean that she didn't attack Neville because she has long nails like mine. They're not damaged in any way, shape or form.
Yeah. Okay.
But we will come to that. Sheila's hands and feet are perfectly clean, which there is a theory that there is ritualistic cleaning and that Sheila could have washed and cleaned herself before she killed herself. This has been really difficult to find stuff on. Every time I search ritualistic cleaning, I don't know if the internet feels like it's giving instructions, but it won't tell me the significance of it. It just keeps giving me the Samaritan's hotline, and it's talking a lot about ritualistic cleanings in religion prior to burial, but it's not actually telling me what it means before a suicide. So that was quite difficult, but there has been a general consensus among many experts when discussing this case that ritualistic cleaning prior to suicide is very, very common. So I am taking their word for that. The first shot that Sheila had is further down. Now they know that that one was the first one because the blood actually hemorrhages here. So it means that the blood was still pumping. So while this would have been a fatal shot, it wouldn't have been instantly fatal. It would have taken time. However, the second shot was instantly fatal. Jeremy is told, so we're back to outside the house, and Jeremy is told that his family has been found dead, and he is apparently in a state of shock. He turns to the police and he says, "You said that everything would be all right." Now, that to me is a heartbreaking thing to say. It's childlike, and he's put his trust into the authorities that he feels, and they stood outside while this potentially was happening.
For
while these
hours.
People, for hours, while these people were potentially dying, you stood outside and didn't go in.
Yeah.
There is also sources that say that he tells police, my sister should be in a nut house for what she's done. So immediately the speculation goes to his sister.
Which, I mean, is natural because he got a call to say that his sister had a gun.
Correct.
Okay.
Now, Detective Taft Jones is the detective in charge of the case, and he says the house is locked from the inside, the doors are locked, the windows are locked, etc. And the pathologist said that the bodies are in line with murder-suicide. So the police start tidying up. They get rid of mattresses, they move the bodies, and they're thinking we're going to give the house back to the family. But it does mean that evidence is not really collected from the home. To me, it seems a bit quick. Like, it seems a little bit like, you know, Sherlock Holmes used to say, don't make your evidence fit your theory, make your theory fit the evidence. It seems here that that's what they do. They make their evidence fit the theory.
Yeah.
Now, this case is, well, it's horrible to say, but it's sensationalized within the press. I mean, you've got this gorgeous woman who has killed
A model.
a model who's killed her 2 little babies, and they start running all of these stories.
Okay.
They plaster Sheila's face all over front pages with these images of her 2 beautiful babies, and it's tragic, and everyone is looking at it thinking, how is this possible? Testimony does contradict that. She said that she had the boys 5 days a week and in emergencies. She said social services paid for a taxi for them to be taken there with their mother. She said she had to ensure their well-being. That's her testimony, and it seems like it was plausible that that argument could have happened. I don't personally understand why it would have happened. They could have gone and lived with Colin, their father, full-time.
Yeah.
But, you know, again, like I said, not a huge amount on that. She also said in her testimony that she had met Jeremy once when he collected the boys. However, to the night, the time after the murders, the people who knew Sheila, they're saying absolutely not. There's no way that this happened, especially her aunt, Pam Boutflower. She would remember she was married to Robert Boutflower. She was saying no way this happened. One of the reasons that this is really brought into question is because Neville was 6'4" and a farmer. So physically, he would have been very, very strong. Now, Sheila was only about 5'7" and 8.5 stone. So she's Diddy. A little bit taller than me, but very, very skinny. So, you know, she's really small. The Close family also say, no, she's got no experience with a gun. Now, that's actually not true. And she had been out on shooting trips with one of her cousins. But the family's claiming, no, that's not true. They swabbed her hands. Now, I am really bad with all the technical stuff, but they're looking for
gunshot residue.
Lead and lead at the time. I think it was gunshot residue to show. Now, there was a large amount of shots. So we've got Neville has been shot 8 times. The babies in total 8, so 16. And June, I think it was 7. So we've got 23 shots before Sheila's 25. So there would be a huge amount of gunshot residue. And actually, there is tiny amounts. But don't forget, there could have been all those shots and then just the residue from the 2 shots if she had taken part in that ritualistic
But
cleaning.
she did have gunshot residue on her hands. She did. But just
she
a
had
small
lead.
amount.
She had lead on her hands, which I'm led to believe is the same thing.
Good one, good one.
Thank you. But remember, her hands are clean. Her feet also have no sugar on them. So that could mean that...
Oh, because the sugar was everywhere.
The sugar. So it could mean that, no, she wasn't in the kitchen. Or it could mean that she'd cleaned herself. So, don't know.
Cleaning.
Ritualistic cleaning. So there's an argument for both sides. But people do think the fact that she shot herself twice is weird because it would be so painful. Okay, it's not going to kill you instantly, but it'd be so painful. Would you be able to then shoot yourself again?
Yeah. But
I don't know.
The human body is insane. Like, with adrenaline, and then perhaps you could do that. You don't really know.
No.
The human body and the human mind is really quite complex, and we don't even know half of it.
Additionally, if the police were correct in saying that there was a second body in the kitchen and Sheila shot herself once and then moved to the bedroom where she shot herself again, which is what is implied, then that's contradictory to the blood stains, because if she shot herself there, the blood would have gone down. There's none.
It didn't look pulled in her neck.
It doesn't look like she's moved after she's done this one.
Mm-hmm.
So there's loads of contradictory information. People are arguing about it left, right and centre. I can imagine you've just had a horrific trauma within your family. You're struggling with that.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Anne Eaton, she is Pamela and Robert's daughter. So I have popped up a little family tree because it does get a bit confusing.
Mm-hmm.
She is really, really suspicious of Jeremy. She thinks that he's no good. Her father also thinks that he's no good, doesn't like him, thinks that he's money hungry. Now, these two sides of the family, they're not super close. They do, however, have a shared interest in a holiday park thing, the Okea, something like that. Anyway, it was a holiday park that was owned by both sides of the family. Anne is thinking, Eaton is thinking, Jeremy's going to get everything, you know, and it should be belonging to both sides of the family, and he is going to get everything, and she's not happy about that.
Why would he get everything if it was owned by both sides of the family?
Okay, so there was a bit of a conversation around this, but basically it seems that Neville had taken some land off them when the Boutflowers and Eaton family were struggling financially. Under the agreement, so that they basically wouldn't lose it, Neville had it. Under the agreement that when they financially were back on their feet,
He would give it back.
would then, they would then buy it back off Neville.
Right,
now, they
okay.
believe that Jeremy is money hungry, so they think, well, he's not going to do that.
Mm.
Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Jeremy is interviewed by the police, and when he is interviewed, he tells the police about June's mental health issues. A couple of things here. Anne witnesses this. She sees that, and she makes notes on everything that he says. Firstly, why is she in an interview with Jeremy? That's weird. I don't know why.
Yeah, he's a fully grown adult. Like, there's no need.
There is literally no need for that.
Yeah, he doesn't need, like, supervision.
And you would think that that would be confidential.
Yeah.
But,
and also
really
conflict of interest. Sorry, I'm moving again.
And also a massive conflict of interest. Yeah, you are correct. Anne's really angry that Jeremy has told the police about June's mental health issues. But I don't get that. I would think that that would be relevant.
Yeah, of course. I mean, it's history. You have to get background on everything.
Exactly. So anyway, she's really angry. Apparently she's taken a load of notes, goes to the Boutflowers, and she says, Jeremy is guilty. He's done this. And they go back to the police and they say, we don't think that Sheila did this. So this is the Boutflower side of the family. So this is the mother's side of the family.
Mm-hmm.
We don't think she did this. We think that Jeremy did it. And Detective Taft Jones, isn't happy. He's like, no, I've done my case. This is it. Now, I can't tell whether or not he did that because, you know, he didn't want his work questioned or whatever it was. But he was saying, like, we've closed the case. It's a murder-suicide. This is what happened.
Done and dusted.
And don't get me wrong, I'm all for families advocating for their loved ones. Like, that often needs to happen, especially if you think that there is somebody who's wrongly found guilty, or you think that somebody, you know, guilty is set free. But the police actually take this family's word far too much. Like, they are way too heavily influenced by them. And that is concerning. Like, the family should not have that much say.
Shouldn't have that much control, yeah.
No. And when it's Taft Jones, they don't. However, later they will. But the family keeps arguing. They keep recording everything. Like, they keep writing it all down, saying, no, Jeremy's not acting correctly. And now some of the police are starting to agree. The police are saying that outside of the house, he was so calm. But then that's contradicted by what other police officers say, which is that he was in shock and turned around and said, you said everything was going to be okay. So they're contradicting. And also there's the argument, and this is an argument in every single murder documentary, like everyone who ever discusses anything says, what is the right way to react when you're in shock?
Well, yeah, exactly. You can say, oh my God, I would not do that, but you genuinely have no idea. Unless you've been in that situation, yeah. You have
no idea. And when the police dropped him home that evening, he made himself a bacon sandwich and a cup of tea, and they felt that no, that was suspicious. But who's to say?
Realistically, when you're in shock, you should eat stuff. Do they not say that you should eat something to...
Well, my thing is that everybody makes a cup of tea when they're having a bad day.
Yeah, this is England. We're probably going to see this a lot more.
Exactly.
Yeah, no, fair. Yeah, I don't know. I think that judging someone in their most vulnerable moment of their life is not an accurate depiction of
no, not at all.
Yeah.
On August the 10th, 1985, the family go back to White House Farm.
So it's only 3 days later?
Yeah, only 3 days later, they go back to White House Farm with Basil Cock. He is the executor of the estate. My captions blocked it out, so I don't actually know how to spell it because he only comes up in like the interviews. But Jeremy's not with them. This is the Boutflower side of the family. David Boutflower, who is June's nephew, finds the silencer. So that is Jeremy's cousin. He finds a silencer and telescopic sights in the gun cupboard in the office downstairs.
Wait, so the executor of the estate's here, Jeremy's not here, and the police are not here either.
Correct. So we have David Boutflower, who is Jeremy's cousin, Anne Eaton, who is also Jeremy's cousin, Robert Boutflower and Basil Cock, and the farm secretary, Barbara Wilson. They are all there when this silencer is found. And so they say, right, well, there's no way that it could have been planted because all of these people were there, blah, 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 blah. There is obviously so many ways around that, but we say, let's just say we take this at face value for what it is. They find this silencer. Now, a quick bit of background on Barbara Wilson, the farm secretary. She had called Neville at 9:30 on the night of the murders, and she said he was really short with her, really snappy. It sounded like she'd interrupted an argument. She actually gave 14 statements to the police following the murders, and all of them were super positive about Jeremy. She was like, yeah, he was really pleasant. She got on better with him than she did her own son. And Jeremy. I can't do it now.
You're okay.
Jeremy. She said Jeremy.
Cut.
And that's a wrap. I can't do it anymore. She said Jeremy was never nasty to his family. She said he was never violent. However, she is later interviewed in 2013, so way down the line, and she said that every time he visited the farm there was arguments. He would torment his mother. He would wear makeup, which really angered his dad, which to me sounds more like, you know, his dad.
Sounds like his dad's problem, yeah.
Yeah, and she said that Neville had told her he could foresee a shooting accident. It's literally in quotations. So
she changed her tune?
She did, a lot. So is she changing it because she's scared of Jeremy? Or has she been convinced by the Boutflowers, like, you know, they managed to convince the police? We don't know, but that's a little bit...
Also, 30 years later, like, I wouldn't really take her word for it 30 years later. If she did 14...
but then flip the script on it. He's out and free, okay? Her entire livelihood depended on this family. While he's out and free, she's giving... No, there's nothing wrong. No, he's great. No, he's fine. Now he's in prison, she's giving an interview. Has she now changed her tune? I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just saying... Sorry. I'm just saying devil's advocate. It could be... You could argue at that side.
Yeah, but why 30 years later? She could have done that interview, like, on the stand, you know? Like, she could have...
Yeah, she could have.
No, I don't know. I'm still not sure about that.
In the office, in the cupboard, they find the silencer and the telescopic sights. Now, there is said to be a spot of blood in the silencer. There's also said to be red paint. Now, if you look back at that photo of where Neville was, around the Aga, that what's it called? That bit around the...
Like the alcove type thing.
Yeah, the alcove fireplace. There is red paint. And there is also what the family finds on this day, marked in that red paint that could have been made by the silencer. So on August the 12th, Taft Jones goes to Anne Eaton and collects the silencers. Anne has packaged them up and gives them to the police. There was also said to be a grey hair on it, but that's no longer there. That's been lost. But this is not a efficient chain of custody. I mean, It's gone from 5 members of the family or 3 members of the family and, you know, whoever else, Basil Cock and the Barbara Wilson woman. Now Anne's taken it. She's wrapped it up neatly, and 2 days later the police come and collect it. It's hardly secure, is it?
2 days later, and they've lost a key piece of evidence that they said was there. Brilliant.
Now, the blood inside the silencer is said to match Sheila Caffell, and a gun expert, and I don't think you need to be an expert for this bit, but the gun expert says that means that she's been shot with the silencer, because there is no way that she could have shot herself, taken the silencer off, and then put it away in the gun cupboard, which I don't think you needed to be an expert to work that out.
Okay, but in 5, was there DNA that they could test? Could they test DNA?
Okay. So, I don't know a huge amount about sciencey stuff. However...
Good sciencey stuff.
The makeup of blood, right? It could have actually belonged to other family members or animals. So it could have been Sheila's, but...
What do you mean? They said it matches Sheila.
But that I don't know how they do it, but the way that they do it is different to how they do it now.
Right.
So it's just looking at a certain thing in the blood. And actually they said that could belong to
Anyone.
Robert. It could be a mixture of two people's. It is not definitively. If we were to test it today, we would have a better idea. But then it wasn't definitively Sheila's.
Right, okay. But they said that it matched Sheila's.
Correct. And on August the 14th, the police check the mantle, the area around the Aga, and they say, yeah, there are the marks. Oh, look, they match the marks on the silences.
Wow, would you look at that?
Yeah, and Anne and her family had found these things before the police. I don't know how these things were all missed. But then, having said that, they didn't do a very thorough investigation, did they? So, you know. On August the 16th, Sheila, Neville and June, their funerals are held. Now, there's a photo here of Jeremy Bamber. He looks very, very sad. He is with Julie Mugford, his girlfriend, fiancée at the time. Jeremy's crying, and the relatives are really angry. They've asked the police to bug the cars, and they said Jeremy smiled at them in a knowing way.
Conjecture.
Yes, conjecture, lawyer. After the funeral, he goes out for dinner, and then he goes on a windsurfing holiday. Which, again, not a good look, but we don't know how people are going to react.
Directly after the funeral?
Yeah, goes for dinner, then he goes on a windsurfing holiday for a couple of days, and on the 19th of August, he comes back, and it is the funeral for the two baby boys, for Nicholas and Daniel. Jeremy and Julie Mugford leave afterwards to go to the Netherlands, and it's said that they're going there to buy weed, smoke weed, whatever it is. Again, now we're getting into a point where a lot of the articles written are biased one way or another. So, you know, Robert Boutflower appeals to the chief constable. He's like, no, I'm not happy. He goes to somebody higher than Taft Jones and he wants everything to be relooked at. And it is. They relook at all of the evidence and the police say, no, this is a murder-suicide and Sheila is responsible for this.
Okay.
August 31st, Julie Mugford says to Jeremy, do you love me? How often do you ask Jack, do you love me?
Or like at least 3 times a day.
Right. And he said, I don't know. And then on September the 3rd, Julie hears him ask his ex-girlfriend out. And on September the 7th, Julie Mugford goes to the police and says, I can't do this anymore. This guilt is eating me up. Jeremy didn't like his family. He didn't get on with any of them. He didn't get on with Sheila. He said that his mum and Sheila were mad. He said that the twins were unbalanced because of the way that they'd been raised. He always talked about killing them. He talked about how he would do it. These conversations increased in October 1984. He said he was going to drug them all and set the farm on fire. But then he realised that if he did that, it would destroy all of the stuff within the farm, which held a lot of value. And he wanted to inherit these things. And so he came to the conclusion that he was going to shoot them all and have Sheila take the fall for it.
What? Okay, this has just come out of left... Well, I mean, it hasn't come out of left field because people have been suspicious of him, but this has come out of left field in the fact that, no.
Julie's... Yeah. She said that he was going to stage it as a murder-suicide, and he knew that the kitchen window was broken and he could get out of the kitchen window and it would look like it was locked from the inside. If you remember, it said everything was locked from the inside. So at 9:50 p.m. on the 6th of August, he calls Julie and he says, oh, I've been thinking about this all day and it's now or never. I've got to do it. Between 3 and 3:30 a.m., he calls and said, everything's going well, but something's wrong at the farm. Bye, honey. Love you lots. Weird.
Everything's going well, but something's wrong at the farm.
Now, if she's been in
At
on this...
3:30 a.m.?
Between 3 and 3:30. Now, that is actually confirmed because her roommates were woken up by it as well, by a call, but it was closer to 3 o'clock. Now, if she was in on it the whole time, why would he say, everything's going well, but there's something wrong at the farm? Well, she knows there's something wrong at the farm. You've been telling her you're going to kill them all.
Yeah, but wait a minute. At what time did he call the police?
So, it said that he called the police at 3:35 a.m.
And what time did he get a call from his dad to say that
we'll go into all of that now, and I will explain the timeline to you, and then you can see where there's confusion.
Okay.
So he calls in the morning. He calls Julie in the morning and says Sheila's gone mad and that the police are going to come and pick Julie up. Which is contradictory to what she's saying. She's saying, no, he did it. But apparently that was just over the phone. And then when he saw her in person, he said, I should have been an actor. She asked if he had killed them. And he said, no, he had got one of his friends, Matthew McDonald, to do it. Matthew McDonald, we've never heard of him before, but she said no, Matthew McDonald has done it. McDonald was to phone while he was in the farm to provide a record for the alibi. This was also to prove that there was a phone call from his father. He said, McDonald had said, Neville's really strong for his age. Don't worry, the boys had a very peaceful death. Sheila was given the gun and told to shoot herself. Now, few issues with this, if this is what's happened. If I'm holding a gun to you and then I hand you the gun and say, shoot yourself, what are you going to do?
Shoot the person that's given me the gun.
That's it, and that's the only issue I have with that story. However, then Taft Jones, he then goes and arrests Jeremy Bamber. And Bamber's like, I don't believe this. What is going on? McDonald is also arrested, but he has a really strong alibi. There is no record of the money being deposited into McDonald's account to say, like, you know, he's been involved in this. And so McDonald has nothing to do with this. And they prove that McDonald has nothing to do with this. But they continue, from Julie Mugford's story, they continue to pursue Jeremy. But Taft Jones thinks no. He doesn't think he did it, but they're just, you know, going along with it.
Yeah.
Jeremy admits, he knew about the window. He says, I can get in. I grew up in that house.
Obviously,
I can climb in and out the windows. I know where these things are.
Mm-hmm.
He also admits that him and Julie had stolen £1,000 from the holiday park and they had staged it as a burglary.
Right. What's the relevance of that?
Just the fact that, I suppose it's like, Julie was all up for all of this. Where was her guilt up until he said, he wasn't too sure about them and he asked out his ex-girlfriend?
Yeah.
So is this a case of she just, she was fine with it when she had access to the money? Is it a case of they knew about that dodgy window because they were stealing stuff from the family?
Mm-hmm.
But essentially it just goes to show, like, they were up to no good, the pair of them.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
The police hold him for 5 days and he is charged for the burglary but is released on bail. He goes out to a wine bar and then a bougie strip club. I know, he's living his best life.
What a guy.
And a guy called Mike Ainsley takes over the case and he reads the notes from the family and he starts to think, Jeremy's guilty.
The family's notes?
Yeah.
Oh, for goodness sake.
So I think this is massively biased,
Yeah.
But some of the key notes that allude to his guilt is that he was really calm on the night of the murder. Some officers say that he was weeping a lot, but it seemed false. Okay, so now we've got a contradictory thing. So is he super calm or was he weepy and it seemed false? The police say that they passed Jeremy when he was driving and he was driving suspiciously slowly. So in the interview today, the police say that if he was going any slower, he would be stopped.
I'm torn on that because if I had to drive to somewhere where I thought my whole family was being murdered, then there's a part of me that would be speeding, like something awful. But then there's also a part of me that would be quite nervous and knowing maybe he saw the police in the background and slowed down to let them pass because he knew that he wanted them to get there first. Or maybe he was driving slowly because he was anticipating what was happening and didn't want to get there super quick and not know what to do when he got there. So him driving slow, I think all of the things that we've said so far about his behaviour, it can be argued either way,
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if it means anything. The other thing that they say about that makes him look guilty is he didn't call 999. He called the local police. So he called like the village police. Whatever they are.
Okay. Again, perhaps he thought that they would get there quicker? Or does he know people at that police that he thought would be able to help? Or
no, so basically the argument is that these kind of things happen so often with his sister that he didn't feel that he needed to call 999.
Because he didn't think it would escalate?
Yeah. But the gun is a new thing, so I don't know. It's hard to say. If somebody said there was a gun in a home with 2 children, would you not call 999?
Well, yeah. I probably would, but that's just me.
And so Mike Ainsley, the police officer, is saying, no, he's a calculated killer and he wanted the money. The property's worth a lot. They also had a lot of wealth aside from the property. Mm-hmm. Jeremy goes to Saint-Tropez in September and on his return in Dover, he is arrested. The next day, he is arraigned for 5 murder charges and pleads not guilty. He is driven to Norwich prison and he sees his friends and smiles at them, and apparently that's like the famous picture of him smiling as he's being taken to prison. In October 1986, the jury is informed that they can only decide it's Sheila or Jeremy. Now that's not normal.
That's not how these things work.
No, because it should be that it's either guilty or not guilty
Yeah.
for Jeremy. You can't put Sheila on trial because she's not here. And she has to be able to be questioned in order to be on trial. The defence says that Sheila killed the family during a psychotic episode, takes the silencer off the gun, puts it into the cupboard, then cleans herself up due to ritualistic behaviour. Jeremy thinks that the blood was planted, but the defence won't let him go there because they say that that's too far-fetched and, too many theories, it will muddy the water. The prosecution says that he was working on the farm, he left the gun out, he then drove home, cycled to the house, to the White House farm, staged the murders as a murder-suicide, called himself from the phone, then left the phone off the hook, climbed out the window and cycled home again. They also said that Neville could not have spoken with the broken jaw and that there was no blood on the phone. They said that Neville would have called the police before he called his son, which, yeah, I understand that. They also say that Julie received a phone call from Jeremy and her housemate corroborates that they were awoken before 3:15. So does that mean that Jeremy called her before he called the police? Now, does that allude to his guilt, or is that just he's not taking it that seriously? These things were super common with his sister. I mean, I can definitely see me calling Jay being like, what do I do?
Well, yeah, same.
If this was you doing this, I think I would really struggle to call the police on you.
I don't know, because if this were you doing this and it was Leo that was in danger, I would call the police.
Yeah.
Because at that point, I don't care about you. I care about...
No, but is it a case of would you believe that if someone called you and said Catherine's gone crazy with a gun and she's going to kill us all? Is it but then obviously it's different because you wouldn't be like, you would be like, that's completely far-fetched.
Yeah, that's so out of character. Yeah.
Whereas in that situation... Anyway, Sheila's psychiatrist, Dr. Ferguson, said, this doesn't fit with what I think of Sheila. But this man, to me, is a dipstick because he said she was highly disturbed. She hated her mother. She had suicidal ideations. She believed her boys were going to try and seduce her and that she believed she could do harm to her boys. So what part of this is so out of the realm of possibility?
Children.
Yeah. Julie testifies and she had to admit that she had been involved in the burglary and she admitted to stealing money from the offices and Jeremy made it look like a break-in. But Jeremy says no. Julie's lying about this whole thing. She's not lying about the burglary, but her whole story about McDonald was a lie and everything else. Now, Robert Boutflower said he had had a conversation with Jeremy where Jeremy had said, I can kill anyone, including my parents. In what world does someone say that? Either you are some kind of psychopath or it's not true.
Yeah.
Jeremy says it's untrue.
But right now, everything that we're saying is just his word against theirs. You know?
Yeah. There's no evidence yet. The silencer is the main piece of evidence because obviously if the silencer is in the cupboard with Sheila's blood on it, then that is...
Yeah, but it shouldn't be admissible in court because it wasn't found by police and it didn't follow the same the correct chain of custody.
Absolutely. And so it shouldn't be used as evidence. So the jury asks where would the money go? So they obviously know that this is going to be a big part of it. Now, Jeremy was actually found guilty and he was sentenced to a life imprisonment with a minimum of 25 years.
Oh.
The judge, Justice Drake, said that he was evil almost beyond belief. He did it for money, he was warped, he was callous. And it was difficult to foresee when it would be safe to let him back out into society. In 1989, Jeremy made an appeal, but it was denied. And in 1994, the Home Secretary turned this into a life order.
I am floored.
Yeah. There's only a few people in this country who are actually on full life orders. In 2002, he appealed again. Again, it was denied. Now, there is a huge amount of work going into his innocence appeal. Now, I can't say one way or another what I think. However, just a couple of bits to add on. And the CCRC, can't remember who they are, like what they stand for, but they are the team who looks at wrongful convictions. They are currently looking into all of this. Now, just a quick thing on Colin Cafell. Now, he obviously lost his 2 baby boys and the mother of his children, and he went on to do amazing work. Worked in bereavement psychotherapy, and he wrote a book about losing his boys. This case is so unbelievably sad because we're not really looking at the fact that 5 people's lives were lost. We are looking at whether or not it was Sheila or Jeremy or someone else entirely. Now, Nicholas was a little boy who loved nature and he loved paintings and bright colours, and Daniel was said to be a lot quieter and more serious and very loving and very sensitive. Colin has since remarried and has a daughter. A couple of things to add on to the other side, because like you said, it's one word against the other. The last time that Sheila saw her doctors, she'd actually convinced them to only give her half of her injection, her medication.
Right.
Which, why?
Yeah.
Something that was left out by a lot of the statements was, even though they believed Jeremy wasn't acting correctly, after the incident, he took a lot of Valium, which was prescribed to him for kind of the stress and the trauma he'd been through, and he was also drinking a lot. Which can obviously impact his behaviour. Several of the officers also said, no, we searched that cupboard and there was nothing in there. The blood could also have matched Robert Boutflower, who admitted to having touched the silencer. The family had said, no, Sheila's never shot a gun, but actually she had been to a shooting party and she had been on a shooting trip for 3 days with David Boutflower, her cousin.
Wow, yeah, so yeah, she knew how to use a gun for sure.
Now, at 3:36, Jeremy is said to have called the police and told them about his sister. 10 minutes earlier, there is actually a record from the police saying that Neville called the police, saying his daughter was wielding a rifle. And Jeremy was at his own home at that point. However, the police say no, that was just an error. One of them, they wrote the wrong timings on there, and that was actually in reference to Jeremy's phone call. But Scotland Yard has a log that's a 999 log from White House Farm while Jeremy was outside of the house with the police. There is an officer called Officer Milbank who said at 6:09 there was a call from White House Farm. No one ever spoke to him about it. There was no noises. There was maybe muffled speech and things moving, but no one's ever interviewed him about it. And at 6:09 a.m, Jeremy was outside with the police officers. Now, my only question from that is, if Sheila then shot herself without a silencer, surely that would be heard down the phone.
You'd be able
because
to hear
that
it.
Was there.
But you'd be able to hear it down the phone, but they also would have been able to hear it outside.
Exactly. The other thing that the police now say is that there was no movement in the upstairs window. The police officer, when interviewed today, says Jeremy told us there was movement in the window upstairs, and when I looked up, I realised that it was just the moonlight reflecting. But if it was just the moonlight reflecting, why did you not go into the house?
Yeah, why would you not just go in immediately?
So, in conclusion, I cannot say for sure whether I know if it was Sheila or Jeremy. However, go on.
For me, I can't say for sure whether or not it was Sheila or Jeremy, but I can say, maybe not for sure, but in my opinion, Jeremy shouldn't be in prison for it, because from all of the evidence that we have spoken about, I mean, it's all circumstantial. It's all somebody's opinion. Each other is saying something against the other and his word against theirs. And I do not think that there is beyond a reasonable doubt that Jeremy did this.
No,
and that's what it comes down to.
Neither do I. So it's currently with the CCRC and there is still an innocence project for him. They're trying to fight for him to be released. I wouldn't be surprised if that was to happen. Thank you for our episode 1. Follow us on everything, and next week Rosie will be telling me a story. I love you, mi amor.
Yes, I love you. I'll speak to you soon.
Bye.
Bye.